could cry. The silent song for falling star lights up a purple sky. And as I wonder where you're, I'm so long, some I could cry.
Last night, as we sat there, and I think it was about 2 o'clock by that, when we listened to that little segue, we consider that to be one of the greatest segues of all time. You are a champion DJ to go from Hank Williams' Long Gone Lonesome Blues into I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry by Little Richard. I never even knew
a lot of people don't.
That he was there and doing that sort of stuff.
That's Little Richard. It's my favourite period. I mean, he's my number one of all time. He's the reason I do this job. Because, you know, when I was a kid, I just wanted to be him. Still do. But a lot of people don't know that later period. That's around 1970. He was on a label called Reprise then, and the records kind of flopped. I think he had one hit single. And he's doing all kinds of songs, funk stuff and soul stuff, and he's doing, like, Creedence, and he does a great version of Dancing in the Street, which is about as funky as it gets. It's an incredible album. It could be my favourite album of all time. But he was a huge Hank Williams fan, and he was a big country music fan, as you know, it's not uncommon. Hank Williams was a big deal to just about everyone that ever recorded, I reckon. You know, he was huge, and he would have probably considered himself a blues singer, Hank Williams, which I consider him too. Yeah.
Just on the subject, I sat with Kelly Joe Phelps, who
wonderful.
thought that Ornette Coleman was making hillbilly music. It's just, that's what it was in Ornette Coleman's head. It just came out differently, and he interpreted it exactly like that.
Yeah, interesting.
He's an interesting man.
Kelly Joe?
Yeah.
He's a genius, yeah, he's amazing.
Fine guitar player.
Incredible. Yeah, I like everything he does.
Howling wind, don't you ride this train, 'cause we're glory bound. Driving rain, don't you halt these wheels, we're trucking on. Tired of losing ground, tired of falling down, tired of wondering why we breathe. Yeah. I've been talking to Jehovah, yeah, and I believe.
But yeah, I kind of tied those two together. I wanted to play Hank Williams because he's a big deal, and I think that vocal delivery he does on that song, that bit of yodeling in there is just masterful. And you know, the guy his output by the age he died at 27. It's phenomenal. And then I really wanted to put Little Richard in, and I thought, you know, let's put him singing a Hank Williams song. His vocal on that is so strong. I recorded a song covered from that same album, one I did called Green Power, and I didn't even try and do it as my own version. I tried to get as close to Richard as I could, almost an octave lower, because I can't get up to those notes anymore. But it was fun trying to do it, yeah. I think I've got everything Little Richard ever recorded, and it goes way beyond the late 50s stuff, Tutti Frutti and Long Tall Sally. He did a lot of stuff much later than that, which is very cool. Late 60s, he had Hendrix on guitar when he was on the OK label. You know, some fantastic recordings. I think it was Johnny Guitar Watson was producing him then. 2 records for I think it was okay. I'm not very good on labels, but yeah. But that was from a record on Reprise. There you go. That's the extent of my knowledge.
Let's talk about new bands, because you touched that you weren't really enamoured with that much that's on the scene at the moment coming at you.
Nah.
And what's anything? I mean, you travel, you're seeing live, but there's plenty of bands I assume that you see live that don't record.
I don't really get to see that many. You know,
Do you listen to much music?
Not as much as I should, but I'll tell you a band I've been turned on to recently was a band called Shouting Matches.
Right.
And it's a side project. One of the singer is from Bon Iver, or Bon Iver, however you pronounce it. And it's his mates from other bands, and they do this. It's a bit of a garage band, very bluesy. And I chose one of their songs as one of my favourites, actually. That's probably the most impressive thing I've heard in a long time.
Yeah. And by sheer luck, Barry is poised over the Zandt mono with a copy of New Theme by the Shouting Machine.
Shouting Matches.
Them as well. Guitars. What are you playing there? That's a nice National, isn't it?
That was my National, one of 3 I've got. That's actually one of their new ones, which they're building them. I sound like I'm doing a plug for National now, but they are genuinely building them as close as they've ever done to the old originals, one of which I have from 1929, and that's a thing of beauty. But this comes pretty damn close, because they're making them. It's all to do with the thickness of the metal and the woods they use and stuff. Yeah, it's great. It's as good as my old one.
Yeah, and like Neil Young, you name your guitars, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, I was asked to ask you by a friend of yours.
Who's that?
Ask Ian about his guitar, Charlie. Dennis Dudley.
Oh, Dennis,
and
yeah.
Ian has been to the Pacific Northwest, Seattle twice, and I've been his pseudo tour manager with the Mark Riley trio behind him. So he wanted to run out. He wanted you to talk about Charlie.
There's nothing pseudo about Dennis's tour managing. He did me proud out there, and I'll be eternally grateful to him. Charlie was one, Mark Riley, my friend out there, who's a great blues guitar player and a luthier, and he had this beautiful old, what was a square-necked Oahu from the 30s. It was a lap steel, and he'd round-necked it, if that makes any sense, to make it playable as a regular thing. And he'd called it Charlie after Charlie Patton, coincidentally. So she has remained Charlie, but of course it's guitars are girls, that's just a fact.
The shape.
Look at the shape of it, yeah. So it's Charlotte, obviously, but Charlie for sure, yeah. Beautiful thing.
And how many guitars have you got?
I don't really know. I think I've gone past the 20 mark now.
And you buy them and you sell them?
I've started selling them now. I always used to keep them, and then I hate... all my guitars are wonderful things. I don't get them otherwise. And I hate it when I stop using one for a long period because something else has taken its place. So then I sell them. But the trouble is I'll sell one and then buy 2. And it's kind of an addiction of sorts. But
it's a good addiction.
My sister actually got me a T-shirt for Christmas which says, I have too many guitars, and then underneath in brackets it says, said no one ever. and that's, any guitarist will tell you that. There's always one more, And they all do specific jobs. I honestly, every guitar I've got has its purpose, genuinely. It really does.
And then Dusty Siegal walks into the room with his $125 Dan Electro.
And there's a baritone.
The place apart.
Yeah, well, Dusty is a maestro, and he can make anything. I need a little more help than he does. But, I like character guitars, not necessarily expensive ones. Some of them are dirt cheap, but they've got a certain sound or character to them. Yeah, Dusty can play. Great guitar players. Well, if you think of, actually, I can cite a friend of mine, Matt Schofield. He's one of them. Muddy was one of them. Hubert Sumlin, definitely one of them. Dusty is another that can play any instrument through any guitar, through any amplifier, and they sound like themselves. And that's really the mark of a great player, I think. You know within one note exactly who's playing, Because Muddy became an endorsee of Guild guitars in the 60s, so he switched from his friend at Telecaster to Guilds. And if you listen to those recordings, it sounds exactly the same, but they're very different guitars.
I specifically introduce you as a roots troubadour because most people just say, oh, Ian Siegal, I mean, you've won the award for Best Blues Artist, God knows how many times. I just think no one can vote for you anymore. You've done it so
only as a
times.
vocalist, let me point that out.
Oh, right, yes, you can vote. And yet you're much more than a blues artist. I mean, we're going to get into that whole thing, what is blues?
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think it's all linked up and it's all connected. I've never called myself a blues artist, or certainly not for a long time. And my friend Luther Dickinson puts exactly my thoughts into words when he says he gets the same thing. He gets called a blues guitar player, and he says I'm a rock and roll musician who plays blues, and that's how I consider myself. Rock and roll being what encapsulates all American roots music, which are my influences: country, blues, funk, soul, R&B, jazz, everything, bluegrass, the lot, all